you see that? It just died. Welcome back to Living with a Classic, and today I have something really interesting. I have an XJS V12 behind me here, which I like to call the 15-minute XJS, because that's how long it runs before it quits, and it won't restart for another hour, an hour and a half. Doesn't matter what you do, after about 15 minutes or so, it's like you switch the ignition off. It's completely dead, no spark whatsoever. It's been to several different shops and still hasn't been fixed. I have tried one thing on it because when it arrived here, I wanted to try it, the whole 15-minute thing, and it did it. It was 16 minutes, but still, it did it, and I immediately have some spare parts laying around, and while it was still hot, I switched some of those parts around, but we still had issues, so I think I know what the issue is now. But let's dive in, and I'll show you guys, and then we'll start it up and see if it does its 15 minutes of fame, and then see if it will work with the replaced part. This particular car is a 1988, so it's a pretty late car to still be running the Lucas ignition system. The XJS got the magnetic Marelli system the year after. The XJ12 kept it all the way till 92. This is a really reliable ignition system. The only thing that usually goes wrong is this ignition amplifier. Inside of it, there is a GM module that can go bad, same as any GM V8 with the HEI, same sort of module in there. So what I did when this thing quit on me, I was just sitting out in my yard, and I immediately swapped the coil and the amplifier for a good used one from another car. Still no spark whatsoever. I took the lead out there, put a spark plug on it, got nothing. I verified that we still had voltage going to the coil and all of that, so the whole system had power, it just wouldn't give spark. So my idea is that it's the little sensor. There's sort of I believe it's a Hall effect sensor inside the distributor, and that's the one that's gone wrong. So I have picked up a spare one, or I have borrowed it from this car, which I'm about to take apart and do a lot of work to, so it's not going to be up and running for the next couple of weeks anyway. And I know that this car has a good ignition system, so we're going to take, we're going to test it out, so I show you guys what happens. Then when it stalls, we'll probably let it cool down because it's quite warm down there. Then I'll put this in and we'll try again, and hopefully it doesn't stall out then. And then I can order one because I don't want to put any parts in someone else's car. Because one of this is close to, it's like $150, $200, so it's not crazy, but it's definitely a waste of money to have a customer spend that on their car, especially if it doesn't fix it. And also especially because this thing has been to several shops and they've spent quite a bit of money on it, and the issue is still not fixed. So let me hook up the battery, we'll open up the garage door, fire it up, and set a timer and see if it quits on us. All right, let's see if it fires up. It doesn't run all 12, but that's really because it's only run like 15 minutes at a time for the past year, so the plugs are pretty bad on it. It gets better after a while. Once we get it running correctly, I will be replacing the plugs and doing a couple of maintenance things to this car. There we go. And I'm just going to immediately back it out a little bit so we get all of the exhaust fumes out of the garage. So let's get a stopwatch going and we'll start it. We can add maybe 30 seconds to that or something. I'm going to close the bonnet and go inside. I'm going to hold the throttle a little bit so it idles a little bit higher right now. The auxiliary air valve is pretty bad in this car as well. So we're going to get it up, try and get it running all cylinders and get some heat in there, and we'll report back when it's ran a little longer. All right, it's been close to 3 minutes and I've held the revs up a little bit, and now it is it's on more cylinders, not on every single one, but we've got 700 RPM idle. I think we're missing 2 cylinders. Well, it's very, very cold outside tonight. So we're gonna let this thing continue running. It might take a little bit longer for it to quit, because the last time I did this, it was 15 or 20 degrees warmer outside. Also has a bit of oil leak that I'm gonna have to have a look at. But we gotta fix this first, because there's no point in having an XJS if you can't drive it anywhere. Actually, I take that back. We're just down one cylinder. We're fine on that bank, and we're missing one cylinder in that bank. So really not that bad for how this car has been running. You know, 15 minutes at a time, it's not really good. It was also brought here on a transport truck, and it's moved up and down that several times. So that does not help a V12 to it fouls plugs really easily if it just runs for a couple minutes at a time. We're doing, let's see how we're doing here. Oh, come on, phone. Go. We're 5 minutes into it, so another 10 minutes, possibly a little longer because it's this cold, but after 10 minutes, I think I'm going to go inside it and hold the revs up a little bit and see if that will help bring some heat, because it's a heat-related thing, I believe, and it takes about that long for it to get warm and for that thing to shut off. I think we're at the 7-minute mark or something, and it is up to temperature. Yeah, 7 minutes. So I'm gonna start holding the revs a little bit, try and build a little bit more temperature in the engine. Nothing crazy, but like you're cruising down the road, 1700 RPMs, something like that. And we'll just let it sit like this for a while, and we'll see if it. You can also see that the time's much the same here, because I connected up the battery and about a minute later I started it up, or 2 minutes later. So that is pretty correct as well. Good thing I don't have any neighbors, because they're wondering what I'm doing at 11 o'clock at night, sitting and idling a V12 outside my garage. But I'll keep this running, and I'll cut it to when it hopefully quits. We're getting close to the mark. I'm not sure if it's going to do it now, just because with it being so cold outside. So if we go a lot past 20, I think I'm going to pull it in, and then we'll let it sit for a bit, and maybe it'll heat soak, and then maybe it won't fire up because of loss of spark. But the only other thing I'm smelling now is oil leaks. I smell burning oil on the manifold, so probably cam cover gaskets and some other things that are slowly leaking on it. But otherwise, it's a very nice. I love this color, shade of dark blue. It's hard to see in here, but it's gorgeous, and with the blue interior, it's a very, very pretty car. And I think the owner's going to enjoy it even more if we can figure out why it stops running all the time. Did you see that? It just died. And 20 minutes and 25 seconds. And it will not restart now. It is completely dead. And just like that, it was as if someone turned the key off. It doesn't have spark now. It's just completely lost. I can show you that in a second. Just want to get this thing in here. I think I'm gonna have to push it, but that's what I do to show you guys that it's actually, you know, what happens to this. And sorry, it wasn't a 15-minute, it was a 20-minute XJS, but still not good. And as you saw, it didn't splutter or anything. I saw some slight movement in the needle right before, and I was like focused on it, and then it just shut off like that. It's less than 5 minutes now. I just rolled it into the workshop and pulled down the garage door, because this is a great source of heat when it's so cold outside. And I just want to show you guys the ignition is on, that we do have voltage to the coil. So ground it there, and we do have 12 volts to the coil. So that's not it. It basically just feels like someone switches off the ignition like that. I'm gonna get a test light and just show you guys that we don't have any spark at all being generated. And well, as you see, it is most likely that part that we talked about. I just put a spark tester in here. It has a red flashing light. If it detects spark, and it's going straight from the coil into the distributor, so that will give you lots of flashes, you know, all 12 of them. So let's just crank this over, and it's the same as it was before. We'll get nothing. Because I don't feel like burning myself on a very hot V12, I'm going to wait for this thing to cool down till tomorrow if I have some time, or the day after, and we're going to replace this part. That's the sensor inside the distributor. I know this one is good. We'll borrow this one, put it in here, and then we'll run the same test again. Unfortunately, won't really be able to go for a test drive. At the moment, it's middle of winter here, quite a bit of snow. This thing's on summer tires, and also I don't want to subject a customer car to any salt or anything on that road. But it's a good thing that it did fail the way it did now, that when it took 5 minutes longer, but still, while sitting in my workshop, it still quit. So we can try that next time. You know, if it runs for more than 20 minutes, more than 25, more than 30 minutes with the part replaced, I'm willing to bet that it is fixed. It's a couple days later. I've been a bit under the weather, but now I'm out in the workshop again. And my plan was to just take the distributor apart, put in the used sensor, and then we'll fire it up and try it out. And no need to film that because it's pretty straightforward. However, I found some interesting things. First of all, some things are correct. Like the owner said, this thing has been to a couple shops with this issue, so it has new plugs in it. Most likely we're going to replace those anyways because they've been fouled up so bad by just running all this short, times. It hasn't, it doesn't really run all the time. But the AC leads are new and they're great. So is the cap. However, as soon as I took it off, I noticed this. Do you see all of that fine dust in there? Wouldn't be too surprised to find that in a, if this was the original cap on the car, but this is brand new. Has really no miles on it because the car hasn't run well. So that was the first sort of weird thing. Second weird thing was this. That's the rotor. Definitely not new. That thing is pretty old. It was stuck on there extremely hard. And you see all this dust on there as well. And you see the pry marks here of me trying to get it off. That's how badly stuck on it was there. And that's also makes me question, so that means that no one has serviced the advanced weights, because you need to remove this rotor to drop some oil down there for regular maintenance. That's what I do on all cars like this. Regular maintenance for me includes servicing the distributor. So then I felt the advanced weights, and they're as stiff as can be. And they were a lot worse before I started prying this thing off. They're supposed to spring back. So they're all gummed up. Classic V12 issue. But still, if you've been in here and it's in the customer's car, you check those things, because it's never going to run right if it doesn't have the correct advance. And then we have the real interesting thing. I also noticed, if you have a look at the cable here, I don't know if you can see with the light, it's kind of difficult, but it's been replaced. It's not the original sensor, because then both cables would be white. One side is black, which means it's an aftermarket sensor. So someone's already replaced it. And then we have the metal filings. So the little sensor down there and the trigger wheel, there's supposed to be an air gap in between there. There isn't. So yeah, it has basically been self-clearing itself the whole time. And the metal filings are probably both from the sensor and from that trigger wheel. And they're everywhere. So I'm gonna have to try and get all that apart and clean that out. That'll be fun. And also gonna have to measure that wheel, see if that's been damaged, compare it to another one. If it's been filed down a lot, maybe we have to find another trigger wheel. And definitely need a new sensor. The plan was just to stick a used sensor in here and see if that was the issue, because it was most likely just be a wiring issue or something else. But this job just sort of totally changed. I'm going to see if I can clean this up in here, because I don't want to ruin the other sensor I have, because it's a good one.
or if this is just easier just to pull the whole distributor out, service it, and put all new parts in it. I think that might be it, but I'm going to see if I can clean all this up and see how easy it is to get these metal filings off. In case you don't believe this is metal, have a look at this. Just a regular magnet here. Just have a look at all of the filings it's picking up right now. So this is going to be quite a job to clean this up. We'll see if it's even possible with it in the car to clean up enough to try out another sensor, or if I have to rip it out and then well, that will be a different video. But I'm going to try a little bit more and continue fishing up all these metal filings.
Here we go. I hope you can sort of see this. I'm trying to focus on it. But here you have the two sensors. You can really see how much the other one has been just chewed down by that trigger wheel and ruined. I've cleaned up the area pretty well with a magnet, and we used a magnet and compressed air as well. And it looks very nice and clean in there. No metal shavings anywhere now. So I'm going to put in the used sensor from the other car in and install everything back together, and we'll fire it up and see if it runs better. Once again, we have a lot of snow out, so can't really take it for a test drive. It's really cold outside and about a foot of snow. But we'll do the whole thing again, and if it runs for longer, then I think we'll call it fixed, because this thing is obviously broken. I mounted the spare sensor in there, and there is an air gap in between that star wheel, or a point of the star, and the sensor right there. Supposed to be no less than 8 thousandths of an inch and no more than 14 thousandths. I chose 12 thousandths, and it's all adjusted. And these were loose when I took it apart, and one of them is stripped out, so I just borrowed one from a spare distributor for now. So that's probably one of the reasons. Either they weren't tight enough, or they were over tight and stripped or something. So maybe this was set up correctly, and then after some driving, I mean, that is a magnet, so it will want to travel that way. And that's probably what ruined it. But I'm going to put this back together, clean up the cap as well, put it all back together, see if it runs, and report back. So the little clock in there just ticked over to 37. And right after I switched on the battery, I turned on the car. So that's how long it's been running. About 37 minutes, maybe 36. No issues at all. I've also sat in it for a while, held up the revs, and it hasn't wanted to die. It's even gotten that hot under the bonnet here that I've heard the viscous fan like really lock in at one point and pull some cooler air through. So it is quite hot under here, and everything is working well. Besides it being on 11, we're missing one cylinder on this side the whole time. It's probably a plug, because it did come back once before. Other than that, I really do think we fixed the issue. Well, now it's back in the workshop, close the door. Nice thing about doing this in the winter is I get some nice heat in the workshop. Doing this in the summer, it almost gets too hot to be in here if you have a V12 that's been running for a while. But now it's just really nice. So this was the issue, this little sensor. And that was my guess after what he described with the car, and also the things I tested the first time I was here, changing the amplifier and changing the coil. And that made no difference, still lost spark. So I don't think it was completely the fault of whoever put this replacement one in, because one of the nuts was stripped. So they probably didn't notice that, and then it moved in slowly or that way against that wheel and just got chewed up. You see it's pretty chewed up. I checked the star wheel, or whatever you want to call it, the 12-sided wheel. It's fine. It measures exactly the same as one in another car I have, so that doesn't need to be replaced. Just one of these. I'm going to order one up for the customer, and then I've talked to him as well. We've gone through several things with this car that it needs. It has original fuel hoses. It has mostly original coolant hoses, and it has 2 pretty bad oil leaks. So we're going to go through and do all of that, and then we'll do plugs at the same time. I've rebuild distributor and everything, and he should get a really nicely running V12 back. He's had this thing for over 20 years, so I think it's going to be really excited. He says it's going to feel like the day he got it again. So a big revamp on this car. Not going to do all of it exactly now. I'm going to order up the parts and then do that in the spring, because he's not going to pick it up, you know, until later in the spring when the snow is gone from here and the snow is gone from where he lives, which is further north, where winter stays a little bit longer. But like you saw, it is cold out. It's -10 at the moment. Quite a bit of snow, so that's why we didn't take it for a test drive. But I feel quite confident, seeing how damaged this thing was, that this was the issue. If this thing looked pristine and the cables never looked pristine, I would want to take it for a test drive as well. But now I'm really confident that this was the issue. Anyways, I hope you could like this troubleshooting. I like to show you guys sometimes when I find some odd things with these old V12s. Anyways, if you like this video, please give a thumbs up, share it with friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. And if you want to help out the channel even more, I do have a Patreon down below, so you can check that out if you want to. Until next time, I'm Adam. This was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.